Welcome to Conversations. I'm Robin Fahr. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a great show for you today, as always. But first, I'm so happy to welcome Marilyn Ellis. Marilyn Ellis is the creative director of a wonderful program called Points of Life, and we'll let her explain that. Welcome to Conversations. Great to have you here.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
So we've been chatting a little bit beforehand, and I'm loving what you're doing here. Points of Life. Well, I'm going to let you explain it, and then we'll just take off from there. What is Points of Life?
Well, Points of Life is a collaboration of professionals that work with adults in all stages of their life, from planning to end of life to everything in between. And it's getting them to talk about what they need and helping them to make the plans that preserves their lifestyle, respects their life stages, and preserves their legacy as well.
And as creative director, you have an extra special task, and what is that?
Well, I wrote a series of skits to add a little bit of humor to subjects that are sometimes kind of scary and ominous for people to talk about. And it's a way to get people to sort of laugh about issues that might not seem very laughable, but gets the juices going and gets the conversations going, you know, and makes it feel less threatening and scary to talk about, so they can actually make the plans they need to make.
And these are elder issues that people aging, well, we all are, but I mean our elders that as they're aging, our seniors, these are the issues that, and I know what you mean about not wanting to talk about some of the stuff that needs to be talked about. It's unpleasant. And so you by putting on these skits, and you go to some of these special communities and hospitals and all sorts of places and put these on, informing people, takes a little bit of the scary out of it.
Well, that's what we're hoping to do, and it seems to be working. And it isn't really just for the seniors, but it's for their whole families, because baby boomers and Generation X and even the Ys really need to start planning now so that they can preserve what they need for the future. So it's all about just each stage of your life and what you need to do. And no, nobody wants to talk about it. They'll think about it tomorrow, and tomorrow might be too late.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there's just certain things, putting together our family trust, doing certain things where you had to make decisions based upon in the event of your death.
That's right.
That is just not a conversation I ever want to have.
That's right.
But I can see if somebody put together a skit and addressed the funny side of that, because there's a funny side to just about everything.
There is, yeah.
I think I would say, all right, let's just do this.
Well, let's do it. And you know, really, when you think about it, stories have traditionally always been the best way to impart a message. I mean, we have parables and fables and fairy tales, and they're all about life lessons. And so making things interesting and entertaining as well as informative is what we're really all about. And it's how we get them to come in the first place in order to talk about these issues.
Yes, you will laugh is the guarantee.
You will be entertained. You will actually have fun, and it won't be something, you know, grim and boring and depressing, but you'll be laughing. You will be laughing.
You called it edutainment?
Edutainment,
That's
yes.
fabulous. That's just it. How did you get started in something like this? You're a senior move manager, which essentially is getting people from maybe what has been their lifelong home and sometimes downsizing into something more manageable. I can't even imagine how you would do something like that, because that's a lot of memories in a house probably twice the size of what they're moving into.
It is, and it can be, it's a real change in your life, and it can be very traumatic and emotional, and so it's important to cherish those memories and cherish those stories. But in the process of that, when you're really in people's stuff, and that's what you are, you're in their closets and their drawers and their papers, and you're talking about their lives, and you meet all their family members, you really understand the journey that they've taken. And that's what really inspired me to write these skits. These are all based on either my clients or sometimes my own family, but certainly real life situations that everybody at some point in time can associate with, or say, hey, that was my life. Oh my gosh, were you listening at the door?
Yeah, exactly. Because isn't that true? That people think that they are experiencing things alone, and yet they're usually universal, aren't they?
They are. They're universal, and there's something so comforting about knowing that you're not alone. Not only do people have other people experience what you're experiencing, but they also realize that somebody else understands and gets them and knows what can be done and can offer them solutions. That's what we're really all about.
So you have the creative side of this. Do you ever act in the skits as well?
I am. Yes, I am. I am at the moment.
Show,
we're looking for more. Well, we have actually. It's Richard Wexler and I are in the skits. And so
I know Richard Wexler,
yes,
don't I? Haven't I had him on my show a couple of times?
Yes, and he's the founder of Points of Life. Actually, he and I founded it together. But he is really the one that this was his dream in the beginning, and it was my idea to put skits into it because we were both frustrated with trying to get people to actually want to talk about these issues. How can we get them to come so we can talk to them? And I said, why don't we do some skits? How do you feel about getting up on the stage and and doing that? And he was game for it, and so we tried it, and it's really been successcul. It really has.
I'm happy to hear that because the number one fear is public speaking, something that you do actually very well.
Yeah.
And so good for him that he said, yes, I can put any fears aside and just go ahead and do this.
That's right. And so either we're husband and wife, we're brother and sister, we're client and consult. We're all the different things. We mix it all up and have a lot of fun with it at the same time.
Can you give me an example of a skit that you do? And maybe it's the moving from the downsizing one, since that's something you're probably so familiar with, or a skit that you just say, this is what brings the point home and everybody has a good time, and then of course you bring in more professionals to talk about it.
Well, we have several, and we have catchy titles for them. So for instance, one is She's Your Mother, Not Mine.
Yeah.
And that one's about a wife who has agreed to take care of the mother-in-law who's just gotten out of rehab and has gone home, and everybody thinks she's going to be just fine and it's just going to be a piece of cake, and it turns out not to be a piece of cake, and mom really needs a lot more help than the daughter-in-law ever realized. And then they realize that they haven't got a plan, not only for themselves but for their mother, but also for themselves as well, that they haven't even thought about how to plan their future and what they will need. And so we get into some conversations, and there's a lot of joking involved and a little bit of chiding as well, and there's lots of nodding in the audience going, yes, I've had this conversation, yes. I really get this, yes.
Well, and what would also be so helpful too would be, because the joke aside, she's your mother, not mine, but I'll bet that is a real issue for couples as their parents are aging on what to do. I'll bet that puts a lot of strain on the marriage itself.
Well, traditionally, the caregiving traditionally is usually the daughter or the daughter-in-law who has to care for a senior who needs help. But that is changing, and more men are stepping up to the plate and are involved. But traditionally, that has been true. And yes, there's the dynamics. It's a very multi-level, complicated issue when you're dealing with different generations and whether or not they're blood relatives or not, et cetera, et cetera. So, and what are the dynamics in the relationships to begin with? And yes, it puts strain on the wife. In this case, she complains that her back hurts and her hair is falling out. And that the kids are mad at her because they're always late for soccer practice because she's always running around, and that she has no time for herself either. And so all of those things come into play, and that's real life. But it's all done with love. She still loves her mother-in-law very much and wants to help, but it's not working, and they really need to make a better plan. So that's just one of the skits that we do.
And that gets the people talking. It's not like you're necessarily saying, here's what you have to do now.
No.
It's saying, this is going to come up. This very likely could come up.
Yes.
And rather than dealing with it when it's almost, after the fact, what are you going to do
what
in
are
that
you
event?
Going to do? Because ultimately, if you don't have a plan in place, it means that when you do need to make a decision, probably in an emergency, you don't have as many options, and it's also going to be a lot more expensive.
Right.
To get the solution.
And those are the real problems with not planning ahead and dealing with these things, aren't they? And sometimes it's more than just inconvenience. It can really become problematic if you don't deal with these things.
It can. In fact, it's interesting. One of our colleagues said that it seemed to her that almost every one of her clients would show up for the first time at her office with their hair on fire. And we all sort of nodded and said, we really understand that it seems like it's not until there's some sort of an event, a catastrophic event, do people say, oh gosh, we better do something. And being reactive is not the best way to solve a problem. It's we would all love for our clients to have a plan in place. We'll help them wherever they are and whenever it happens, but it's so much better for everybody, and it's going to cost them a lot less money in the long run in getting the plan in place and having time to do the research and not having it being done under an emergency.
One of the things we were talking about beforehand, and I just thought this is wonderful, is that oftentimes seniors will, as we were talking about, need to downsize, and they don't quite know where to go, and they think that if they hire a consultant to kind of tell them where they should, that this is going to be costly. Well, what I understand for you, they're called placement coordinators.
Yes,
These are people that the senior does not pay. It's taken care of by the communities that offer such services.
That's right.
And they can actually say to a placement coordinator, all right, I want somebody to make at least one meal a day. I want there to be several activities, and then they can tell you, here's a good place for you to live, or here's a few options.
That's right, exactly. There's just no reason to try and do this on your own.
No.
There's so many professionals who've visited all these places and know exactly what would be best, and they don't make the mistakes. Sometimes if you don't have someone like that to help you, you can think it's the right community, and then you get there and you realize after being there a while that it really isn't quite the right fit for you, and that's cost you a lot of money as well as time.
And time and energy and all of that. No, that's what makes it so interesting. Where can people, I'm going to give out the information too, but these skits going on, where could we say this summer that in the Tri-Valley that we might be able to catch something?
Well, we have one coming up, I believe it's on the 28th in San Jose, and then we have several that are going on in Walnut Creek. We're having one that's going to be in Union City. They're going to be all over the area, and we're always looking for great opportunities. So if anyone wants to book us to come out and do our show, we'd love to talk to them, and they can reach us through pointsoflife.org. That's our website, and that would be the best way, to find out. And we would love to come out and do our stuff and edutain everybody.
So you edutain, and then you have your panel of experts who then can take the questions. These are attorneys and other professionals who can. And you said they're still having fun while they got contagious with that.
Yes, they did. They started out really kind of being very sort of stiff and answer these questions, and now they're cracking jokes and they're really rolling with it, and it's making the whole event just really a fun and also thought-provoking. It gets the juices going. Everybody wants to talk about it. It's just been a really great experience.
It's the exact opposite of what you think is going to happen when you have these discussions. Yes. And that's, I think, when you get everybody together and everybody's laughing about the same silly things that really everybody's going to have to deal with at some point. Makes it fun.
And the professionals are right there on the spot to answer your questions. I mean, how wonderful is that? Each skit has a panel that follows it, and each skit has a certain topic and subject and points we want to make, and then professionals in that area of expertise to answer those questions right then and there.
I love it. This is Marilyn Ellis. She's the creative director of Points of Life. These are, again, humorous skits regarding the problems of aging. If you think you'd like to have her at your event, or you just know where she would really be a good fit, you've got to check her out. There's a phone number. This is her phone number, 1-866-379-6440. She'll direct you to all the Points of Life information. But as Marilyn said, the website pointsoflife.org is where you can check this out. Marilyn, great to have you on Conversations.
Thank you so much.
I love what you're doing. I had so much I could have asked you, but that'll get us started.
Thank you so much. Thanks.